It was a teal 1997 Dodge Intrepid. I had it for almost 6 years, I think, until the day Chandra told me, babe, you really just got to get rid of that thing. It's got a ton of problems. I said, there's nothing wrong with my car. I love this baby. I'm going to ride it till it dies, which I did for a short while after. It had a few problems, and eventually I did get rid of it. But the day I got rid of my beloved 97 Dodge Intrepid, which was like my second or third car, I think. Second to the 86 T-Bird that I got from my grandpa. The saddest memory that I have of the 97 Intrepid was the day I made that fateful trip. The day I drove away in the 97 Intrepid. And the day I looked at my dad for the last time. It was April 7th, 2004. It was a Wednesday. The way I remember the story, it was 7-8-9, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was 3 days and 4 choices. And it was the week of my life that completely shifted everything. Everything. Shifted everything for the rest of my life. My mom and dad had been married for 25 years, high school sweethearts. When you take a vow when you get married, as I did as a husband here, you make a vow till death do you part. Through the highs and the lows, through the ups and the downs, through the battles that we face, through the demons that we just can't get past. And that's what my mom and my dad did. And on Wednesday, April 7th, 2004, we finally decided that we were going to leave. My mom had decided that there was enough of the struggles, enough of the challenges, enough of the fighting, enough of the anger, enough of the violence. Ironically enough, I didn't realize till about, I think it was earlier this year when I talked to my mom, I hadn't actually realized all this time that the straw that actually broke the camel's back and caused my mom to take us kids, I should say, and finally leave, move to grandma's house, and decide it was time that she was going to file for divorce, was actually because of the day that my dad tried to go after me. It was the first time and the last time that my dad ever tried to lay his hands on me, and it was the day that put my mom over the edge. And to this day, I love her for her choice, right? I don't fault her for anything that she did. She's an amazing woman. But Wednesday, April 7th, I got into my Dodge Intrepid. I was the last person to pack up everything. I loaded up my car. I walked out the front door. I got in the car to leave, put it in park. I backed it up out of the driveway. I looked back at the front porch. And there I saw my dad. He looked at me, and he was crying, and he was sobbing, and he could barely catch his breath. And I remember he asked me one question. He looked at me and he said, Jason, he said, promise me you'll come see me, son? Promise me you'll be back. I looked at him all choked up and all teary-eyed. I said, of course I will, Dad. I promise. I promise. And I put it in drive. I slowly drove off. I looked back through the rearview mirror once more, and I saw my dad standing on the porch, 47 years old, the strongest man I'd ever known in my life, crying as he watched the last of his family members drive away and leave him there alone, fighting the battles that he couldn't get past. So I made a promise to my dad that day that I'd come back and see him. And it took me 8 years to come to the acceptance and the forgiveness for myself of whether or not I fully kept that promise. While there's still some days I question my own logic and my own justification actually of whether or not I did or I didn't, if I'm being honest. So Thursday morning came, we left, I went to Grandma's Wednesday night, went to sleep. Thursday morning came. It was early afternoon. I remember I got in my car, came home from school, unpacked, got in my car, and decided I'd go see my dad. So I drove back to the house on Elm Street. Walked in the front door, and there he was, sitting in his favorite oversized lazy boy recliner that he loves so much, the chair that you were never allowed to sit in if Dad wanted to sit in it. And the only thing that was different this time, or familiar I should say, was that he was passed out again. So Dad was in one of his funks. He was in one of his choices again, if you will, and he was passed out. Whether it was because he had drank a little bit that day, or whether it was because he had taken another handful of somas, hard to tell, right? Hard to tell not knowing. But I walked in there and I looked at him, and I remember with just such animosity and disgust about how completely pissed off I was at him in that moment, that he couldn't keep his promise to me. When he promised me, and he promised my mom, and he promised my sister and my brother and I that he would stop. He promised us that he was going to get better, that he was going to stop taking the pills, that he was going to go to counseling, that he was going to go through rehab, that he was going to be done. And I saw him sitting there passed out in the chair again, and I was pissed. So I made a choice that day, and I decided to leave him alone. I decided that I wasn't going to wake up my dad. I decided that I wasn't going to shake him. I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to do anything. I was just going to leave. So I walked in the kitchen, opened the fridge, looked for something to drink, looked back at my dad, and said, I'll come back tomorrow. I said, I'll be back tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow it'll be different. Maybe tomorrow you'll be okay. Maybe tomorrow I'll be able to have a conversation with you. So I left my dad. It's that nervous cough I get whenever I'm uncomfortable. I clear my throat. My wife's told me a few times. So I walked out and I left my dad passed out in the chair. I went back to Grandma's that night and woke up Friday morning. Went to school like nothing was wrong. Got out of class, came home. I'd met a girl on the internet that I was talking to. Had her drive up 2 hours from Detroit. Had never seen her. Had no idea what she looked like. Talked to her on the phone a couple times. She came up. I remember getting into a major argument with my mom, my brother that day at my grandma's house. I remember I had a blue and yellow Jan Sport backpack. And I remember my mom, or my brother, I think it was my brother. My brother at the time, I remember he kept asking me, he said, what's in the backpack, Jason? What's in the backpack? And I said, it's none of your damn business. It's none of your business. Leave me alone. And they tried ripping my backpack open, right? They tried figuring out what it was. And I got into an argument, got into a big argument with my mom, got into an argument with my brother. This girl showed up at the front door at my grandma's, picked me up, and we left. Ran around. It's here nor there. Did stupid things that stupid 17-year-old boys do at the time. Came back home to Grandma's house. Sitting at Grandma's house later that night. My mom, my brother, they decided to go to the mall. They were going shopping together. And we lived right around the corner from the mall, right on Elm Street there. So my mom and my brother, we couldn't get a hold of my dad. So they decided they were going to stop by and see what he was doing. And they stopped over there. And then I remember Grandma getting a phone call. And I remember Grandma getting off the phone and looking at me and saying, Jason, your dad died. I said, what do you mean my dad died? Like, what do you mean my dad died? She says, I just got a call. She said, your dad, your mom, they just found your dad. And we sped over to Grandma. We sped over to the house. Grandma, we got in the car. We left. We drove over there. And another story for another day, but I remember the ambulance. I remember the headlights. To this day, I remember those headlights shining in my face as I paced around the middle of the street, screaming and cursing. I almost punched the headlight in the ambulance in the middle of the road as I paced in circles. And I remember watching them wheel my father out on that gurney. There was we had a big bay window in the front of the house. And I can remember till this day standing in the street, watching them take pictures, watching the police and the detectives, watching them take pictures inside the window, and then watching them wheel out my dad. And as they wheeled out my father in front of me, covered in a white sheet, I thought about my choice yesterday. And I thought about whether or not I'd kept my promise to my dad as the oldest son, as the one who looked at my father in the eye and said, "I promise you, Dad, I promise you I'll come back and see you." And I did go back. I did go back and see my dad, but I didn't wake him up. I made a promise, and then I made a choice. I made a choice out of my own anger and my own frustration. And I didn't wake up my father. I didn't wake him up. I didn't let him know that I loved him. I didn't let him know that we were here for him, that I was there, that I would have always been there. And to this day, I still think about whether or not I made the right choice. And I think about regrets in my life. And I think about what could have been different. And you hear the cliche all the time from people on the internet, in the personal development space, in the coaching space, and they talk about regrets, right? And I never used to really think about this until I heard it. You can either regret something you've done, wishing you've never done it, or you can have regrets in life for things you never did that you wish you had. And as I've gotten older, and as I've gone through this journey, as I've healed myself, as I've started the coaching, as I've helped other men, as I've helped other fathers, I think about how I want to continue to spend my life with regretting that I've done something and wishing I hadn't, than regretting the things that I never did that I wish I had. Like the regret I carried for 8 years, wishing that I had woken up my father that day. Wishing that I hadn't been so selfish that I just turned around and walked out because of my own anger, because of my own emotions, because of my own selfishness, because of what I had wished he had done differently. As I sit here and think today too about all the things we have in life, all the choices we can make, we have to remember, I'm remembering rather, that we can never get anyone else to change. We can never get anyone else to do the things that we wish so damn desperately that they would do, good or bad. And I remember that we can never help anyone else with the choices that they make. We can only control the choices we make. I spent a lot of years thinking about choices. I still think about them. I thought about them when I wrote about it in the first book, when I wrote the Confident Father's Guidebook, as an outlet for me to have a voice. for me to share with the world a glimpse into my life, into my upbringing, into my world, and into the choices I made, the choices I didn't make, and the regrets I have, and the regrets that I've let go. And so, as I was thinking about this earlier, thinking about what I wanted to say and what I wanted to share today, I would invite you to think for a moment about how you're living life. I want you to think for a moment about the choices that you're making, not the choices that you wish someone else would make, not the choices that you wish somebody else would stop making. I want you to think about the choices that you make, and whether or not the choices that you make today are leading you toward a life full of regrets, and whether they're regretting things that you've done that you wish you didn't, or they're regretting things that you never did that you wish you had. Because one thing we fail to remember, guys, that I remember, that I tell all the fathers in my life that I can remember, that I can run into, that I'm gifted to have contact with, that I can have an opportunity to speak life into. I remind people that you don't know when that day will come, that you're going to make a choice that you may think is small, you may think is insignificant, you may think is inferior, but it might just be a day that you make a choice that you can never get back. It may be the day that you don't get to go back and see your father that next day, or the next week, or the next month. And for whatever it is, whatever you're thinking about today, my hope would be that you make the right choice. Make the right choice for you, for the ones you love, for the ones you care about, and make a choice today that you can be happy with tomorrow. Make a choice that serves you, that serves life, that provides love for everyone around you, and make a choice to continue living one step closer to having fewer regrets. Because I love you guys. Your family loves you. Your friends love you. Especially today in this world of chaos and craziness. I want you to know that you were loved. You are more loved and more connected than you may think. And you're only one phone call, one message, one conversation away from filling your tank with the love that you might need. So with all that being said, I hope this was helpful today for whoever sees it. If you know anyone that could benefit from hearing this message today, I ask you to leave a comment below and tag them. And also do me a favor and leave a comment below. Leave a comment below with a time in your life that you either made a choice that you regret having done, wishing you didn't, or a time in your life that you made a choice that you regret not doing, wishing that you did. And if this is helpful, share it with someone you know. So, I love you guys. I love every one of you. I'm excited to continue this journey with you. And just know that I'm here for you. I love you. If there's anything I can do for you, leave a comment below. Send me a private message. And let's find a time to talk. I love you guys. You're incredible. Your choices matter. And your conversations, your authentic conversations, matter most. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.